we have a special significance for our Chinmaya Mission Alpharetta because Shivratri was the day when Bal Vihar was started 20 years ago in the basement. And Nalini auntie, like, you know, Sudha's basement. They started Bal Vihar. So Shivratri means a lot more to Chinmaya Mission Alpharetta. And we had a wonderful puja done. And today being Sunday, Bal Vihar class, all the classes, almost all the classes celebrated, did the puja along with the teachers, and wonderful, wonderful pictures we got to see from all the classes today. It was very nice, and I'm glad you all could join, and I'm hoping others will join too. So today we're going to go ahead and start the program. Having said that, Shivaji is going to start the program with the prayer, and then after that, we'll go to Shishmaji.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Okay, welcome. Let's go to the agenda, Sujata. Okay. So, you want me to talk about it, or Sujata, you'll talk? Okay, first we'll do...
I was on mute, so that's...
okay.
Thank you, Shivaji. That was wonderful. So today's agenda, the schedule is going to be this. We are going to have satsang for about 15-20 minutes. And then a very brief, like a nutritional aspect, because it is Mahashivratri and we have tons of prasad, everyone bringing, cooking, making and eating and all. The nutritionist has a take on it. Why not make it more nutritious and healthy while we are offering our prasad to the God and make ourselves also healthy? And from 5:30 onwards, Dr. Rakesh Shah is going to take up the session talking about polypharmacy. And so Shishmaji obviously is going to talk about Mahima of Shivratri, which we all kind of try to get every time. But before we do that, I want to just run these brief videos that we have from the Chinmaya mission, and then Shishmaji will take up from there.
Who is Lord Shiva? The three-eyed Lord with a crescent moon on his head, a snake garland around his neck, is one of the popular descriptions of Lord Shiva. Who is he beyond these forms? From the highest standpoint, Lord Shiva is the formless, absolute reality of the nature of pure consciousness, which is our own true nature. The body is nothing but a shava, meaning corpse or inert matter, When Shiva, meaning auspiciousness, enters the body as divine consciousness, it transforms into a holy being. From the viewpoint of manifestation on earth, Lord Shiva is said to have appeared as an enlightened master who guides his disciples to the supreme truth in the form of Adi Shankaracharya and Dakshinamurti Bhagavan. In the process of creation, he is worshipped as the deity in charge of the power of destruction. What is the need for this power? Well, having created so many entanglements in our lives, unable to free ourselves from them, we become helpless. Lord Shiva, as the destroyer, rips apart our delusions and attachments into pieces and provides us the inner strength needed to purify ourselves, to realize that He, as the supreme truth, dwells in every heart.
Don't become bitter, become better, is a quote Swami Tejamayananda often says. And it beautifully encapsulates the symbolism of Lord Shiva's blue neck. There's a lovely story that the Milky Ocean was being churned by a snake called Vasuki. And being a snake, inside was poison. And being tugged from one end to the other continuously, he became very sick. There was no malice, but a snake has poison, and so what was inside when he became sick came out. But this became bad news for everyone concerned because the snake was burning everything it touched, and it was burning the very earth itself. Everyone could not bear it and prayed desperately for help. Lord Shiva came, scooped up the poison, and drank it. Parvatiji very quickly acted and thought it can't poison him and hurt him, so she held his neck. And the poison stayed there, and his neck became blue. Lord Shiva is teaching us what to do with poison. And sure, we don't encounter snakes or scorpions very often, but the world is full of poison. When people speak out of anger and jealousy, it can be so incredibly hurtful. When people are arrogant and proud, or even when someone themselves is hurting, they don't realize that what they do and what they say is hurtful in return. When we receive this poison, when we hear such words, we can spit it back out and in turn increase the amount of poison that there is on this earth. Lord Shiva imbibed it, and when it hurt him, he could have taken it back out, but he didn't. He held it where it wasn't going to hurt anyone else. The other thing we do is we take it in. It becomes something that hurts us and causes us so much pain. It can even become low self-esteem. It can become suppressed, and it can come out as sly comments. And so when we take it within and we internalize it, we become bitter. It hurts us. But Lord Shiva kept it in his neck, where it didn't hurt him and it didn't hurt anyone else. What do? We're not going to keep it in our necks. Well, we can keep it in his, or we can keep it at his feet.
Okay, Shishmaji, you can go ahead.
Yeah, can you give me the...
Access. I made you co-host. I'm thinking you should be able to.
Oh, okay.
Are you able to do it? We can see it.
Are you all able to see now?
Yes, Shishmaji.
Okay. Hariom, everybody. Sujata has asked me to talk about Shivaratri, Shiva Mahima and Shivaratri today. So, if you have to talk about Shiva Mahima alone, we can talk for a lot of time. So today we will talk about little bit about Shiva Mahima and little bit about how we celebrate Shivaratri in our ashram and in most of the other temples also. You know, Shivaratri is one of the most auspicious, one of the two most auspicious days of the year. The other one is Krishna Ashtami, Krishna Jayanti Day. And these 2 days actually in our mission, as well as other orders too, they actually give sannyasa diksha. It is very auspicious. Having said that, Shivaratri, Shiva itself means auspiciousness. And Lord Shiva, one of the ways we actually celebrate Shivaratri, it is not actually Shiva's Ratri, it is our Ratri only. To remember him, to sing his glories and worship him. The tradition is to do it 24 hours. There are days when we are very young, 24 hours continuously chanting and doing Abhishekam with Rudram Chamakam. I wish we could do here also. We don't have that facility right now. But since Lord Shiva is Abhisheha Priyaha, he loves Abhishekam. He loves to take bath. Probably that is why Gangaji decided to sit on him. And like Vishnu Bhagavan is Alankara Priyaha. So on Shivaratri day, we do Shiva Abhishekam. And he's also called Ashutosh. He's so auspicious. If we chant once Om Namah Shivaya, invoking him in our heart with devotion, he is immediately pleased. So his other name that is so lovely to remember is Ashutosh. Whenever we are a little depressed, when we have problems, that Ashutosh Bhagavan is listening to us. Just say Namah Shivaya, he hears it. Like that Swami Amma was saying that he will take away our pain unto his throat. So Shivaratri, Abhishekam is very, very popular. And now, along with Abhishekam, we do with different dravyams. And even if we don't have any dravyam, just water is enough for Shiva. Very, very simple, water. And what is this Rudram? That also I would like to say a few words. About Rudram it is said, Vidyasu Shrutihi Ukrishta Tatra Rudraupanishad Smrita. I have just written that here just to tell you, I'm not lying. It is from this Shruti itself. It says, among all types of Shastras, Shastra means all knowledge, among all Shastras, Veda is supposed to be the most sacred. And among the Vedas, Rudropanishad, which means Rudra, is supposed to be the most sacred. And in Rudram is the sacredest of the sacred names. Namah Shivaya is there. So Rudram is chanted that day. Depending upon how much people can afford in terms of time, energy, and facility, it chanted as many times. In our ashram, we chant it once and we have one Abhishekam. And this Rudram is taken from Yajurveda. And why Rudram? Shiva himself is called Rudra. Rudra, what does it mean? Rut means dukkam. Dra means one who drives away. So since Bhagavan Shiva, who is Shubham, auspiciousness, that means happiness and joy, everything that is good. Since he removes all sorrows and even the causes of sorrow, Bhagavan Shiva is called Rudra. And that which is called Rudram is representation of, it is used as a prayer, and as well as praise of Bhagavan Shiva. What is praise? Praise is, in this case, praise is describing him. What is describing him? That which leads us to the ultimate param knowledge, the param purushartha. That knowledge is contained in Rudra, and therefore it is called Rudra Upanishad also. All right. So now, further a little bit, as I said, I will talk very briefly, just the essence of it. What is chanting Rudra? When we chant Rudra, we start with an invocation. And invocation itself is so extremely beautiful and full by itself that as we invoke Bhagavan as a personal God, my Ishtadevata, personal God, and we go up to invoking him as an all-pervading Sarva-Vyapi Paramatma. After praising him, we submit our prayers to him. And then the invocation, just some examples. As personal God, we say, Shuddha Spadiga Sankasham Trinetram Panjavatrakam Gangadharam Dashabhujam Sarvabharana Bhushtam. As personal God, Lord Shiva has he's three-eyed, Trambhaga, and he has got Gangaji flowing on his head, and his Sarva Abhrana Bhushana. That means, you know what his Abhrana is. Not only diamonds and gold, etc., snakes themselves, and also skulls. All of them have extremely beautiful significances. When we have time, one day we will talk about all that. And continuing, that invocation also, what we do, we invoke all the deities in different parts of our body as well as surroundings, as though the way it is invoked in the invocation prayer is so beautiful. Once we understand the meaning a little bit, not even all the words, we are making ourselves a mini Shiva himself. We are divinizing ourselves, continuously immersed in the essence of Shiva Bhagavan. Prajanane Brahma Tishtadu, Padayor Vishnustishhtadu, Hastayor Shivastishtadu, Bahur Indrastishtadu. Parts by parts of our body we take, and surroundings also, and we invoke Bhagavan therein. And continuing, we also, apart from that, this is on personal level, as personal God, Ishtadevata, we invoke him as all-pervading Paramatma. How? By the Sarva Vyabhitvat. Because he is all-pervading, we invoke him like that. Sarva Vyapinam Misham Rudram Vaivishwarupinam. It goes on like that. The Virada Rupa of Lord Shiva is invoked. Apatala Namastvalanda Bhuvana Brahmandama Vispurata Jodis Padigalinga Mauli Vilasat Purnendu Vandamritaihi. After invoking him and invoking him as the Virata Swarupa, just like the Virata Swarupa in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan as Virata Swarupa, we invoke him in our little lingam and we do abhishekam to him. Lingam represents forms of all forms, because Bhagavan is all Vyapi, Sarva Vyapi, which we cannot, our limited mind cannot imagine that. So Bhagavan only, Lord Shiva only presented to us this Linga form, which is form of all forms, and we do Abhishekam to that. That is what we do for Abhisheka Puja. And Rudram itself consists of 11 chapters. And very briefly again, I will tell you, one is praising Bhagavan as Sarva Ishwaratvam. That means he is the ruler of everything. Lord of Ishwaratvam means lordship. He has the control. We are individuals and he has the control. That is as Ishtadevata. And it progresses on. I told you, it has all the knowledge. It is an Upanishad. And the praise goes on as Sarvatmagatvam. That means that Bhagavan only is appearing as everything. It is all Vishwarupa, like what Purusha Suktam says. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. He has got thousands of eyes, thousands of legs. He is the whole universe that we see, that we perceive. And then it proceeds to Sarvandaryamitvam. He is the essence of everything that he is. He is in us, and in fact, in essence, we are that. So from a beginner seeker to the ultimate Parama Purushartha level, the Rudra Upanishad takes us. And then we pray. The prayer part asks for protection from all possible calamities, all possible problems, internal and external. Prayers are done. So that is what is Rudram about. So on Shivaratri day, it is very good to fast that day and the previous day. It is very good, 24 hours to worship him, mainly that night, from evening till next morning if we can. At least the evening, we do Abhishekam in our ashram as such. And having said that, he said, Lord Shiva's Panchakshara name is there in the middle of Rudram, and which makes it even more auspicious. I want to conclude my little talk on this just by this little Nama Sankirtanam of Lord Shiva. Kindly repeat after me, loudly where you are sitting, with Lord Shiva in your mind. Namaste astu Bhagavan. Sujata, can you repeat after me, please? Unmute yourself. Namaste astu Bhagavan.
Namaste astu Bhagavan.
Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya.
Vishveshwaraya
Mahadevaya
Trayambakaya Tripurandakaya
Trayambakaya Tripurantakaya
Trikalagnikalaya Kalagnirudraya
Trikalagnikalaya Kalarudraya
Neelakandhaya Mrityunjayaya
Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya
Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya
Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya
Sriman Mahadevaya Namaha.
Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Hari Om.
So wonderful, Shishmaji. That was very nice.
Thank you.
Slides, because we are running a little late. I don't want to hold on Dr. Shah, but I'm just going to show what we had. And if anyone's interested, Vimla, you can hopefully send them the recipes and the more different varieties. Can you just go on and just speak in 2 minutes while I roll the slides, Vimla?
So, Hari Om. My name is Vimla Dave and I'm a registered dietitian. And I'm very glad to be here today talking about prasadam. That's my favorite. We all love prasadam. And the thing is, usually they are loaded with calories and sugar and saturated fat. So I was going to review the recipes, how we can make it more healthy and at the same time more appetizing. And, we don't want to sacrifice anything in the taste-wise. We still want our prasadam to be very tasty because we are offering to God. And God doesn't judge us whether we are taking a teaspoon or a tablespoon or a cup, 1/4 cup or a whole cup. But only thing is, just we have to be very mindful. When we are consuming more, we will be wearing those fat calories and sugar calories later on. So we just wonder what happened. So, that was that. And, but the food I eat with my eyes and also the taste too. The food really has to look very appetizing, and it's taste. I don't want to compromise on the taste. So, especially in these recipes, when you dry, like there are some tips, like when you dry roast the nuts on a very low flame, it releases all the oils from the nuts, but we don't want to burn them. So that will add a lot of flavor to the recipe, whether we are making shira, laddu, or barfi or modak, doesn't matter, because nuts they're high in calories, but they are very healthy. And especially like almonds or badam is high in fiber, it's a good source of calcium too. And but for the sweetener, what I like to do is use dates. And like for 6-7 dates, you have also 3 to 4 grams of fiber. So when you have the sugar and the fiber together, it lowers the glycemic index. And it's, it's still, you have the good taste, but you are not adding a whole lot of refined sugar. Because what is sugar? It's the end product of the sugar cane. Because when first is the good, which is unprocessed, and it is high in, minerals, magnesium, and also potassium, and also has some iron too. And the end product is sugar, which doesn't have anything but calories and adding on to more inflammation. And we do want to keep, I know I don't wear sugar very well, so I want my calories to be really high in taste and everything, so I enjoy and relish it. So those are the few things you can do. And actually I use a lot of dates in my baking. I bake also and cook, and in my sweets, especially if you soak the dates and with some warm water, and they get softened up and they release their sugar, and then you can just like warm it up and make like a syrup when you're making laddus. So it's like a binding agent. We don't have to make the chashni or the syrup from the sugar. So you have really the good, it's adding on a lot of taste, and you are getting a lot of good nutrition too. And when I get a chance, maybe I'll make it for you guys someday.
When we meet in person, I'm going to hold that one to you. When we meet in person, you have to give us all the taste, and then we can do the prasad in the ashram too. So
I'll be glad to. That will be a privilege.
Thank you, Vimla. I appreciate it. So no sugar, go with jaggery or the organic substitute of sugar, use dates, and then cut on calories, no flour, use dry fruits. So these are the things. We have all the recipes. If anyone's interested, just ping me, we'll give it to you. And if you want to know any particular substitute which we can use, just ping us and I'll give you the details. So thank you, Vimla, I appreciate it. And Dr. Shah, sorry for the delay. So you can go ahead and start your session and just give us a brief 1 minute introduction about you, because we have a few participants who were not here last year. And thank you so much. Everyone is like super. Everyone who was there last time was asking about you and could not believe you were talking such simple terms. So we want to have you like as many times as possible. Thank you for agreeing. And everyone can take a look at Vimla's picture one time. She has the substitute for the cooked prasad. All right, thank you.
Choice, high in fiber and high in taste, all natural and good for you. And peanuts. And also, they can do a lot with the sweet potatoes too. Or yeah, this is from Indian store. And especially when you get the fruits in season, they are at their peak in taste and everything, very aromatic, and in nutrition too. So especially when you are making prasad with banana, try to really make it overripe. So you have to use less sugar. Same thing like in pineapple, there is a recipe for pineapple halwa. So you will not really have to add any sugar because it's all natural.
Yes, we have to taste them every month. We are going to taste one and tell you how we like. Thank you, Vimla. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
All
Dr.
right.
Shah,
Thank you, Chinmay Mission Alpharita, for inviting me again. It's an honor to be with you guys one more time. And thank you, Sivaji, for a very soulful chanting. And Sushmaji, thanks for enlightening me with definition of Rudra, because we went to Hawaii and we went to that Shiva temple in Maui, Hawaii. We went to that Rudrak's jungle. We got all the Rudraks, but we never knew the word of Rudra. So now I know what Rudraksh and Rudra means. So thank you so much. I think this is a very smooth segue for me to enter into Vanaprastha, because I'm 51, turning 52. So this is probably God's plan that I'm with you guys. So this is going to be an awesome journey for me. And thanks, Vimlaji, for amazing recipe. I have a sweet tooth, so I guess I'll have to start replacing those sugar cane with jaggery and nuts. Thank you so much. And obviously, Sujata for getting me here. So I'm getting right into my topic. I know you all are probably all vaccinated with COVID vaccine, so that is now gone, right? So we are going to try to forget that COVID, something like COVID happened, but now we have to move on to something that is going to be with us forever. We are not going to get rid of this thing. So that is called polypharmacy and prescribing. Now, I'm sure all of you received that form that I sent you, right? About the medication form. Miss, I hope that you actually filled it out, but if you did not, the whole purpose was to kind of wake you up that, wow, I'm taking so many medications and you don't even know when did you start, why did you start, who started it, how much it costs per month. It doesn't matter whether you have insurance or no insurance, but it still costs the money, right? So the financial burden and the side effect part that you never paid attention to. So I'm going to talk about all those things. This is not like sorry for the use of the word, but I guess that is only way I can convey the message. Is this is not a sexy topic, but this is a very important topic that if you don't pay attention to, you are actually paying a big price, not just by money, but by your health and by the side effect that you're getting because of it. Now, do not stop or change anything just because I said something right now. You really need to sit down with your doctor before you make any changes to your current medication regimen. Now, first of all, what is polypharmacy? So let's take a poll, and if you can raise your hand, those who have their video on, how many of you are taking 5 or more medications currently every single day? 5 or more medications.
5 or more medications or pills, any type.
No, those medications not just includes the prescribed by the doctor. Medication does include, you can, I found to make a joke, it does include Baba Ramdev also, it does include GNC also, everything. It includes everything that goes in your mouth, which is not food, you should consider as a medication. So anybody taking 5 or more pills or liquids every single day. So we got few. So typically 1/3 of the US population who is above 60 is taking 5 or more medications every single day. And when we see the patient in the emergency room, and when the patient comes from the nursing home, gosh, miss, they have a laundry list of the medication, and they're on a 10, 15, and some of them are on 20 different medication. It may be hard for you to believe that, but that's a reality. So what is the purpose of this talk? The purpose of this talk is to kind of give plant that seed in your brain that the answer is not in the pill. The pill doesn't solve every problem in the world. It does have a definite role, but every little thing doesn't have to end up in a pill. Okay. Now, doesn't mean that you have to stop taking what you are taking, all those things, Now, as I said, that almost one third of the population is taking more than 5 pills. Now, what is the problem with the old age? Now, see, age is a kind of a relative term, We all consider everybody older than us as old, right? Until now, I was thinking that anything above 50 is old, but now I say no, 50 is still young, But for the medical purpose, if you want to consider typically after 50, but for sure after 60, your body physically is getting to a point where you are defined as an old person. You may be healthy or active person, but still what happens is that your liver and kidney functions start declining. And those are the two main organs that cleans the junk out of your body, liver and the kidney. Your liver function may be normal based on the blood test, or the kidney function based on the kidney test, but still they are not functioning at 100% capacity compared to what you were having in your teens. Okay, so now what happens that when all the medications, when we do the trials, most of the trials specifically exclude people above 65. So what does that mean to you? That every medication you are taking, there is a chance that it was not tested in your age group if you're above 65. So what does that mean is that whatever effect we say as a science does to the human body may not apply to you. That is the one thing. The second thing I say, that with the age, your liver and kidney function starts declining. The third thing is that with the age, the body fat starts increasing. And the fat is a big, like a storage house for anything. It not only stores the fat globules, but it also stores the medications. So when you combine the increased storage capacity of your body and decrease clearance capacity, it's a whatever I'm going to talk today, it's just a common sense. If you really understand it, you will get it that, yeah, I mean, my body is storing more and clearing less. What does that mean? It means it's going to be collected in my body. And whenever a chemical is in the body, it just doesn't sit there. It does something, right? That's what it's supposed to do. So it can do the good effect that is intended to do, but it can do the lot of side effects. And that's what causes a lot of problem is the side effects. So getting old is a great privilege that many people don't get it because they die in the young age. But any privileges comes with a price that you have to pay for that. And one of the prices that you get this medication that doesn't clears out from your body. And plus what happens that your body becomes more sensitive to the medication. For example, if you we see a lot of people who kind of are drug addict and they take the narcotic pain medication and they can pop 25 pills in their mouth and they will be affected, but you can have the same effect. Like the other day, 3 days ago, I had a patient who only took 2 pills of the medicine called Lortab. That is a pain medicine. I'm sure some of you probably took it after knee replacement surgery or some surgery. We give that pain medication. It's a great pain medication, but it has got a lot of side effects. So that gentleman was in his late 70s, and with 2 pills, he actually became unconscious, and they had to bring him to the ER for unconsciousness. So your sensitivity to the medicine increases with the age compared to the youth. So that is a main problem that happens as far as the age is concerned with regards to the medication side effect. Now, why this happens, that why most of you are on bunch of medication. Now, doesn't mean that you don't need it, but sometimes there are some medication. I'm going to go through the list of the medication which may not be needed in your case. So what happens is, as a prescriber, all the doctors, we have a limited time. When I'm an ER doctor, so for me that doesn't apply. But if you go to see your primary care doctor in the office, they have like maybe 15 minutes. Now, in that 15 minutes, they primarily focus on the reason you went to the doctor. And once that is done, then everything else comes into play. And the medication we call it reconciliation, means we kind of say, okay, which medication you're on, like the form that I sent you. Exactly same thing most of us now have in our computer, that we can kind of click through it and say, okay, which medication you are taking, what dose you are taking. So what happens is that most of the time, doctors do not have time to go through the medication that you are taking, or they may not have a complete list, because you might be seeing a cardiologist and he started in some medication and it was never updated into your primary care doctor's database. So he doesn't even know that you are taking this medication, and it happens all the time. This is not something happens once in a while that the doctors don't know, because we don't have same software to communicate with each other most of the time. So the database in the other doctor's office doesn't automatically update in my database, right? And that is the one thing, is the doctors may not be aware of the complete medication list. And then there is because of the defensive medicine, that we are always trying to protect ourselves from the lawsuits. So there is a component of the overdiagnosis and overtreatment. I would rather give you an aspirin if you say I have a chest pain, compared to, well, let me see if this is a really hard chest pain or something else. Because if I have to think through whether it is a chest pain because of the heart, it takes a lot of time for me to go through it. Versus if I just had to give you aspirin, well, here you go, aspirin. But then if I didn't ask you whether you have a history of bleeding ulcer, then within a week or so, you will probably end up in the ER with the bleeding from the ulcer. So that's another thing, is that overdiagnosis and overtreatment. And sometimes, with the age, some people get dementia, and some people just habitually, they forget that this medicine was supposed to be stopped, and they keep taking it. And that's how they end up in a more, polypharmacy. And then, there are a lot of medications, they're available as a combination pills. Like there are a lot of blood pressure medication, like lisinopril and hydrochlorothiazide. You should have the combination pill rather than just two different, because that reduces the number of the pill and confusion. Because less pills to worry about, better compliance is going to be. Otherwise, if you have 15 different pills to remember, eventually you will get tired of taking the pills, because for you the pills become a breakfast. You're popping so many pills, and then you will miss the one that you're actually supposed to take. Now, what are the factors that predisposes to polypharmacy? Obviously, increased patient age, because more, older you are, you're going to have a lot of more physical problem. Not everybody is lucky enough not to have medical problem. So by default, more you advance, you're going to have more number of the pills. And then some people have arthritis, and they have a heart problem, and they have diabetes, and they have cholesterol. So what does it mean? That more medical problems you have, then more pills you're going to have. Then in this era of the specialists that I said earlier, is that, well, you got heart problems, so you're going to heart doctor. Then you got arthritis problems, you're going to arthritis doctor. You got diabetes problems, you're going to the endocrinologist, which is a good in a way to get a specialist take care of you. But if you don't have a primary care doctor who's coordinating everything, you will end up in so many different medications that you won't even know. Because if you go to stomach doctor, they will prescribe you something for your stomach, and then you go to arthritis doctor, they will write you some arthritis medicine, but then he will give you something to prevent stomach problem, because the arthritis medicine, and he wouldn't even know that your stomach doctor wrote you something similar, not exactly same. Because you're smart enough, if it is the same medication, you may figure it out, it's the same medication. But there are a lot of cousins, that I call it, like cousins means they belong to the same group of medication, but they don't have the same molecule, but they have similar effect. So that happens when you have a multiple provider, and you don't have a one provider who is coordinating. Like you need somebody to orchestrate everything so that no duplication happens. Now, the other thing is that I typically make a joke, is that if you go to a surgeon, they're going to cut it. If you go to a physician, the internist or the family practice doctor, we are going to write a medication, because that's what we are trained. That the way I solve the medical problem is like I think through the things, but ultimately what happens that I have to write a prescription, right? So that is our professional training, is that we are just habituated to write the prescriptions whenever you tell us something, okay, take this, take this, take this. The other thing is that uh, using multiple pharmacies, like, okay, you are filling one prescription at the Walmart, second at the CVS, and third you are doing a mail-in pharmacy. Why mail-in? Because oh, mail-in is cheaper, or mail-in is free, versus if I go to CVS, then I have to pay $10 copay. There are a lot of insurance, there are a lot of gimmicks, where if you get a mail-in, you will get a free. So you forget that, hey, I'm getting the same prescription from CVS and I'm getting the mail-in, because see, mail-in comes for the 3 month supply. In CVS, you might be going there every month. So you kind of lose track of, okay, when was this and when was that. So that can cause a lot of problem. And then sometimes the doctor change your drug regime and say, okay, you are taking this metformin twice a day, now you take it 3 times a day. Or maybe the thyroid medicine you're taking once a day, but now your thyroid is abnormal, so you take 1.5 today. And then, like, this happens with some people who are taking Coumadin, the blood thinner, because the blood thinner dose keeps changing based on your blood test. So that is so confusing for a lot of people to keep changing the drug regimen. So as much as possible, you should stick to the same regimen. And the other thing is, some people have a habit of hoarding the medication. What happened that they were, for example, they had a diabetes and they were on metformin, and then after some time, so the diabetes got so out of control, the doctor said, you know what, now we need to put you on the insulin. Okay, all right, I'll take the insulin. But then they don't throw away the metformin. Metformin is still sitting there in the medication cabinet. And sometimes they don't even know what that pill is, because the pill itself doesn't say that it's a metformin. So then they start by mistake taking it, and then the sugar drop, and then all the problem. And then the other thing is that self-treatment by the patient, because we are all doctors in our own way, because we know how to solve so many problems. So something happens, we say, let me take Motrin, let me take a Motrin, let me take a Motrin, okay? And we keep popping the Motrin, and then we end up getting a stomach ulcer or kidney failure. Or the Tylenol. Tylenol sounds so, benign medication, but it's not. Tylenol, actually, if you take more than 2 grams per day, it can actually shut your liver down, and you can be in a big trouble. So those self-treatment are not without any harm. And then you add some other herbal remedies to that, because we all have some favorite thing that we want to take. Some people say, I take ginseng, I say ginkgo biloba, I take St. John's wort, or whatever, whatever is your favorite. Yeah, those things are supposed to be safe. We don't know yet, because that's how it is marketed. But at the same time, we don't know how they're going to interact with the medication you are taking, because nobody has done that kind of study. So what is happening is that in your body, you are putting something while something else is already there. Now, how they're going to interact, you have no clue. Like a lot of medications that we give, at least we know that if I give you this with this is going to happen. But then if you take something that we don't even know what that is, then we don't know what the reaction is going to be. So that is a one big problem with the polypharmacy, is the drug interaction. That more medicine you take, it's a simple logic that there's going to be more interaction within that, with that each other in the body. And then more medication you take, there's going to be more adverse drug reaction. Now, the adverse drug reaction may be just a little bit of nausea or a little bit of sleepiness, but when you keep adding the medications, it's going to keep piling up. And then the other thing comes that when you have too many medications to deal with, you sometimes forget that, well, am I supposed to take half a pill of this or one pill? You know, this happens all the time. The patient forget, oh, I forgot, so I took extra pill. And we get a lot of patients in the ER who kind of double dose them or triple dose them, because of the age, they have dementia. And even with the normal memory people, it is hard to remember which pill to take and how many to take if you're taking more than 5 pills. So what happened that because of that, you get so fed up with it, then you say, you know what, I'm not going to take anything. So they say, okay, Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to just only take 3 pills today. I'm going to only take 4 pills today. And then you leave out the essential medications that you have to have it. And that creates lot of problem. Plus, if you look at the form, you can see that there is a one column that I have wrote down that what does it cost per month. If you add up, it's a lot of money. So that's unnecessary financial burden that you are putting on yourself. So the reason I'm creating the whole background is that I'm going to talk about specific medications and how you can cut down on those medications. One of the biggest problem we see is the hip fractures. Because of these medications, patients fall. Actually, this is how it started. Sujata ji asked me to talk about the falls and the psychiatric problem. And I say, you know what, let's talk about the polypharmacy first, because that will open up the thinking in the people. And then we can talk about the specific things. So one of the specific things we see in the emergency room is a hip fracture. And invariably, it's because of the fall. And invariably, it's like, okay, grandma woke up in the middle of the night and she forgot to turn the lights on, and she got her leg wrapped up in the carpet and she fell. That's a typical story. One of the things that happened, like either she forgot to turn the lights on, or she got her wrapped in the carpet, or she tripped over a dog or a cat, something like that. Now, typically, if you fall like this, you're not going to break your hip. But if you are above 60, above 65, and taking a lot of medications, there is a good chance that you will break your hip. And almost 80% of the time, when you break your hip, I call it the beginning of the end. Very few people come out of that breaking the hip in older age. I'm not talking about younger people, but especially if you're above 70 and if you break your hip, that's a disaster. That's the beginning of the end for your life journey. And the other thing happens is like, for example, if you're taking Motrin, or if you're taking steroids, for example, if you're rheumatoid arthritis, and then you come to us and say, oh, I'm hurting in the stomach. So then I say, okay, here you go. Here is your stomach medicine to relieve your stomach symptoms. So you take that stomach medicine for a year or so, and then suddenly we say, wow, your hemoglobin is only 7. Why? Because when you take that PPI, we call it proton pump inhibitor, your ability to absorb the B12 goes down. So you become deficient in B12. So now I have to give you B12 shots, and then I give you B12 shot, and then suddenly you're diabetic. So the place I gave you a shot, it gets infected, and now you got a hip abscess. So it's one after the other. It's called prescribing cascade. So like for antibiotic, you have a little bit of sinus infection, and you got to go to doctor, and doctor say, oh, here you go, antibiotic. Nothing wrong with antibiotic, but if you're in the older age, you can get we call it C. diff diarrhea, where you get super infection in the colon, and then you end up getting such a severe colon infection that you might end up getting in the hospital. So how do you kind of fix all these things? That when you, what is the practical aspect of this? So when you go to the doctor, I would recommend that you fill out that form. So, and tell your doctor that make this part of your medical record if you already not have it. So at least you know what medication you are taking, you know when was it started, you know who started it, you know why it was started, you know the date it was started, you know the milligrams, you know how often you're supposed to take. So you make the list of all the medication, including over-the-counter medication. If you're taking Tylenol every other day or ibuprofen every other day, for whatever reason, write it down. Or Benadryl every week or something, like, like a spring is coming, so some of you will get allergies. So I took Benadryl or Claritin or, Zyrtec or something like that. Any vitamins or supplements you are taking, make the whole list. And sometimes you are still taking the expired medication. If the medication expired last month, taking this month would not be a big deal. But there are some medications, specifically if you have a heart problem, the nitroglycerin tablet that you take to put under the tongue, if you are having that expired medication more than a few months, then you really need to have a fresh medication. Otherwise, it won't work when you actually need it. And then we have to make sure that before starting, like before your doctor puts you on any new medication, you don't have to Google, but sit down with your doctor and say, hey, do I really need it? That's all. Okay. Is the benefit outweighs the risk, any medication. Okay, that should be the goal, that to find out that it is the benefit outweighs the risk. Plus, if you turn the TV on, you will see a lot of advertisement that will end up with a one sentence. Says, what does it say? Talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor, whether this medicine is right for you, whether this medicine is right for you. So the pharmaceutical industry has a big push direct to consumer towards popping pills, because for them, every person who gets on that pill is a lifelong customer, kind of a thing. For example, if you have a irritable bowel syndrome or high cholesterol or diabetes or blood pressure, anything, you are the lifelong customer. So there's a big push from the pharmaceutical industry to just let people keep taking medicine, keep taking medication. And even though they have not done trials on the older people, they will basically extrapolate the results into everybody. So that is I already told you about that the most of the trials, they exclude people above 65. There are very few trials which are actually done in the older people. So what are the goals of the de-prescribing? So polypharmacy is where you take multiple medication, at least 5 or more, less than 5, probably not, but still anything more than 0, for me, it's a polypharmacy. Okay. So your goal should be to be on the 0 medication. You should not need a doctor and maybe lawyer too, doctor and 0 medication. But not everybody is lucky enough to be in that shoes. So your goal should be not to go beyond 5 medications if possible, and not for sure more than 10. If you're going more than 10, you really need to talk to your doctor and say, look, I'm taking too much of medication. Can we cut down any of this? And that's where you need to do it. So the goal is to decrease the number of the medications that you take on every single day, because you want to reduce the side effect, you want to reduce the drug interaction, you want to reduce the frequency, because there are some medication you'll take every 4 hours or every 6 hours. That's too much of work. That's too much to remember. Even taking twice a day is too much of work for the brain. So less the number of the pill and the less the frequency is the best solution for people. And then you have to figure out that there are some medication which does not have any specific benefit as such. So why to even take it? Because unless you talk to the doctor about it, nobody will think about it. Because if I have to sit down and think whether you really need a Prilosec or not, it takes at least 10-15 minutes of my time. I would rather have you continue than discuss all those things. And like for example, I give you aspirin. It is easy for me to let you continue aspirin if you're even if you're about 80 or 90 years old, versus to discuss and say, well, you really need it or not. Okay. So because the other goal is the cognitive impairment, because so many medications, especially like dementia medication and psychiatric medication, it causes so much of cognitive impairment that you can't think straight. So the goal is also to reduce that cognitive impairment. Otherwise, you can't function. And if you cannot have a productive life, quality of life is not good. If you're just sitting in the couch doing nothing because you are drugged all the time, what use of that life is? Even despite the pills, your numbers look good. That should not be your goal. You should be able to live a happy, healthy, productive life. And the medication is not the answer for that, for everything. So that is medication burden reduction. And plus we see a lot of patients in the ER whose problem is related to medication, because as I said, they took the medication and they fail, or they took the medication and they become unresponsive. Like they took too much of diabetes medication and they become unresponsive. So those things are very important. So the first thing, the practical solution is what I gave you, the form that you should keep that up-to-date form, that hey, that way you know what medication you are taking. And then you should have a periodic, we call it the brown bag checkup. Typically brown bag is not a good thing to think about, but the brown bag checkup is just bring all your medication and let's see what medications you're taking, how much you really need it, in which dose. Can we reduce the dose or can we reduce the frequency? So all those things, and all the bottles should be checked and see, hey, there is a metformin that you have this dated January 2021, but you still have the metformin dated July 2020, and you're taking pills from both the bottles. Oh yeah, but then you don't know that these are the same medication. So especially, like for example, if you're taking lenoxin, that is for the heart medication, nowadays we don't prescribe, but then if you took a brand name, it might say lenoxin, but if you took a generic, it might say digoxin. So you don't know whether these are the same medication or not. So you really want to make sure that you talk to your doctor and say, look, this the same medication? Because it sounds same, it looks same, are the same medication? No, they're not. So, or they are, either way. So make sure that you clarify that. And it's like look-alike, we call it the look-alike drug, and spells alike drug, like they spell similarly or sound alike. So make sure you are not confused in those medication, and you should know the generic and the brand name. Like you're taking over-the-counter Prilosec, and then the doctor prescribe you omeprazole. They're both same medications. So you don't want to take two at the same time. Okay, so then the other thing is that medication organizer, all those pill organizers, that may actually be a good thing to have. That way you don't get confused about which medication you are taking, which one you're supposed to take. And then if you can get blister pack, that is even better. If the pharmacist can make a blister pack for all your 3 medications in the morning, or 3 in the afternoon, or 3 in the evening, that way you know that, hey, I have to take this blister pack and I'm done. So sometimes having good friendship with the pharmacist can help you a lot. And the best thing is that if you can have a non-pharmacologic approaches, like if you have a bad knee arthritis, rather than popping the pill, you can have, like Vimalaji or somebody dietitian work with you and help you, or non-pharmacologic approaches like physiotherapy can help with your knees rather than popping the pill. Now, who are the candidates for the deprescribing? Deprescribing means to reduce the number of the medications you are taking. So people who are taking multiple medication, people who have multiple medical problem, people who already have a kidney problem, people who have multiple doctors that they see, people who don't stick to their medication regimen, or people with a limited life expectancy, because some people have advanced cancer and the doctor has already told you that they're not going to live more than 2 years, right? So now there is no point in giving a cholesterol medicine to that person who's only going to live 2 years, okay? Because it doesn't matter whether you reduce cholesterol to LDL cholesterol to 50 or 500, it doesn't matter. That person is going to die soon anyway. So you have to think about that what is the life expectancy, then dementia, because luckily in our Indian population, we still have people who take care of the older people, but I have seen a lot of older people, they have nobody, they live by themselves and they are starting to get dementia. So those people, they don't need to be on too much of medication, because they can't remember when to take the medication. And then some people are so weak and frail that we know that if this person goes out, they're going to fall. So those people are the candidates to deprescribe. Now, coming to the specific thing, like which medications can you discontinue, okay? Now, once again, do not stop, change, or do anything with your current medication regimen. This is not official medical advice. You really need to sit down with your doctor to discuss the pros and cons of the medication, because you may need that medication. Now, one of the medication is antihypertensive blood pressure medication. Like, there are guidelines by our medical societies about what the ideal blood pressure should be at certain age. But let's say if you're 80 years old and your blood pressure is running 150/90, but then you're taking the blood pressure medicine that is causing a lot of side effects, like you're becoming dizzy or you're falling or things like that, then you really reconsider that, do I really need to take the blood pressure medicine? Because 150/90, yeah, if you are in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, that is a number you want to treat. But at age 80, I think you should be okay with that blood pressure number, because especially if your medicine is going to give you a lot of side effects. Then antipsychotic medication, luckily I don't see that in the Indian population, the psychiatric problem, but there may be some, but it's not surfacing yet. But a lot of people we see around, they are on a lot of antipsychotic medications, like schizophrenia and bipolar disorders and all kinds of stuff. Those medications are the worst in form of side effects and the cognitive impairment it does. It can actually cause death and pneumonia and other stuff. So because on one hand you are demented and then you are given antipsychotic medication, and so that creates a big problem. And then comes the benzodiazepine. Benzos is sleeping pill. Okay, so I'm sure all of you have taken probably sleeping pill once in your life, once or twice, a few days in a year or a few days in lifetime is fine. But there are a lot of people who say, well, if I don't take sleeping pill, I can't sleep. Well, you better figure out another way to induce the sleep, because the answer is not in the pill. There's something else that is bothering you that you're not able to sleep. So you really need to dig deep spiritually and socially to find out why you cannot sleep, rather than just popping a pill every night, especially if you are above 60, above 70. If you keep taking the sleeping pill, you will get addicted to that. And second thing is that you will start falling and you will bruise here and there, but one day you will break your hip, and that will be the beginning of the end. Then there are anticholinergic medication we call. What are those medications? The medication we give for dementia people, for Parkinson's disease, for a lung problem, we call a COPD, the lung problem, then overactive bladder. Many of the medications to treat those diseases we call the anticholinergic medication. You don't have to remember that word, but remember those diseases. If you have one of those things, check your medication. Do you have overactive bladder? Do you have a COPD? Is anybody that you know is developing dementia and is on a medication for that? Okay, so those medications are the worst for the older people, because they can cause memory impairment, confusion, hallucination, like you're seeing things which are not there, hearing things which are not there. Then you can have a dry mouth, you can have an eyesight problem, you can have a constipation, nausea, all kinds of problems. And then you don't even know that all these problems are because of the medication, and then you start treating all those problems with a different medication. Oh, you got constipation, here is a constipation medication. You got nausea, here is a nausea medication. You got dry mouth, here is a medication. You got a retention of the urine, here is a medication. Or you got a tachycardia, here is a medication to stop the tachycardia. So those are the diseases that you really need to pay attention to. Then opioid analgesic, I told you, the pain medication, it's an epidemic, especially in the young people, but in the older people, like a lot of nursing home patients that we see, they are on the pain medication and they are demented. We call it, they are DNR patient, means they do not resuscitate, means in other words, I should not use that word, but in other words, they're waiting to die kind of a thing, and they are on the bunch of pain medication. You don't even know why they're on the pain medication, but nobody dares to stop, but it just keeps on going. So be careful about that, the pain medication. And then comes the warfarin, the Coumadin. Anybody on the Coumadin? I'm sure at least one person is on the blood thinner out of this group for the heart problem or for the stroke problem. So the bleeding problem is a big thing. If you are taking any blood thinner for any reason, make sure you really talk to your doctor, especially if you're above 65 or 70, to see if you really need it, especially if you have fallen multiple times. Like when you take a blood thinner, what does the blood thinner do? It thins your blood. And it's a good thing. If you have an irregular heartbeat, we call it atrial fibrillation, you really need that, because otherwise it will cause blood clot and you can have a stroke. But let us say you had a severe blood in the stool requiring blood transfusion 2 weeks ago, or if you have bleeding ulcers in the stomach, or you fell 2 times and hit your head and there's a big bump here, and one time the doctor said there was slight blood inside your brain, What does it mean? Or he say, you know what, I had a bleeding from the nose last week and it stopped on its own. Now, if you're taking blood thinner, if you bleed from the nose, I'm not worried about it. Or if you cut yourself and you bleed, I'm not worried about it. Why? Because if you cut yourself, I can sew it up and fix it. If you bleed from the nose, I can pinch your nose, or I can cauterize it, or I can put something in the nose to stop it. But if you bleed in your brain, there is no space for the blood to come out. Here the blood comes out, here the blood comes out. So at the most, you will become low in the hemoglobin. Even if you bleed in the stomach, I'm worried, but I'm not that worried. Why? Because at the most, what will happen that you will become low in the hemoglobin, so I can keep filling the tank with your blood to stabilize you. But if you bleed in the brain, the blood has nowhere to go. It's a limited space. So it's going to press on the brain and you can actually die. So this is not to scare you about the blood thinners, but you really have to be very careful about whether you really need a blood thinner or not, especially the newer blood thinner like Coumadin that we used to give long means we still give to some people. It's actually rat poison kind of thing, but it does a pretty good job in thinning your blood. But the good thing is that with the Coumadin, if you have any problem, we can reverse it with the vitamin K and giving you some blood. But the newer blood thinner that we have nowadays, like I'm sure some of you heard the word Xarelto or Eliquis or things like that. They're pretty good because you don't need to monitor your blood for that, and you only have to take once a day. So pretty convenient. But the problem is there is no reversal medication for those things. And with one medication, there is a reversal medication, but it costs arms and legs. It's very expensive and it doesn't even work 100% of the time. So the bottom line for the blood thinner is that you really need to sit down with your doctor, especially if you're above 65, and say, look, why did this? Because some people say, oh, my doctor started 5 years ago before a stroke. Okay, so do you still need it? Okay, I had a blood clot in the leg and my doctor started. So did you check your leg again and see if you still have blood clot? Well, no, I don't have blood clot. Then why are you taking it? People don't even pay attention to that part. So, and you know, as a doctor, when I'm seeing 30 patients in a day, I don't have that much incentive to kind of figure things out all the time. You know, yes, I will if I have a time, but in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I don't have that much incentive to go figure out that, okay, you really need Eliquis or Xarelto or not. Unless you specifically ask me, hey, doctor, you did my ultrasound 5 years back and I've been taking Eliquis for 5 years. Do I really need it? Oh, yeah, you don't need it. So that can actually happen if you really start talking about it. Now, you have to be very careful because all of us, all the doctors have a big ego. So we don't want any people to teach us what to do. Okay, so you have to be very diplomatic and tactful in suggesting the doctor about all those things. That, doc, do you think that I really need it or something? You have to figure out a ways to handle that part. Otherwise, there may be a ego problem also that, oh, so you don't know me or how to treat all those things, something like that, you know. So the warfarin and all these blood thinners are very high risk drug. Then the proton pump inhibitor, you know, you might think that over the counter Prilosec. How many of you are taking Prilosec or Nexium on a daily basis? Prilosec, Nexium, or Protonics? Nobody? And okay, probably you don't even know that you're taking it. Sometimes that happens.
Good for cholesterol. I mean, what is that for?
What Prilosec is a stomach medicine, you know, like if you have a reflux problem, the gas problem, reflux problem, a lot of people take it all the time and they don't even know that they're taking it. But it's a very common medicine, and people, because it's, see, other misconception is that because it is over the counter, people think that it's safe, but not really. The Prilosec and all those things, if you keep taking it, it can actually cause the colitis in the colon, it can cause the hip fracture, it can cause low magnesium, it can cause a B12 absorption problem. So there are a lot of things that it can cause. So there are specific reasons for which you have to take it. There is no other option. But if you don't have any of those reasons, then there's no point in keep popping the Prilosec, the over-the-counter medication. So that, remember that. And then I told you about the arthritis medications like Motrin and naproxen, all those things. A lot of people that I see, they take goody powder and BC powder. Have you heard of that goody powder, BC powder? A lot of laborer, they take it. They can get it at the gas station. It's nothing but aspirin in the powder form. We call it NSAIDs. So they get a headache, they get goody powder or BC powder. It's like powder form. They can just swallow it and drink water, and they, oh, my headache went away. Yeah, because it's an aspirin, so it's going to take away your headache. But eventually, it's going to drill a hole in your stomach. It's going to cause a stomach ulcer, and it's going to cause a kidney problem. And people don't know. So popping a Motrin or popping a naproxen is not that good. The other medication is digoxin. I won't talk much about it because nowadays we don't prescribe that anyway, so that's not a problem. The other important thing is glucose lowering medication. Now, how many of you are diabetes? I'm sure at least 4 or 5 people have diabetes in this audience. And you guys probably take either insulin or tablet, right? So since you are on this call, you are very cognitive, you are alert oriented, so you're not in the dementia zone. But there are a lot of people who enter that zone where they start forgetting things, and sometimes they give themselves a double dose of insulin or they pop more pills. And after certain age, the high sugar is not that much a problem versus low sugar. You can actually die because of the low sugar instantly versus high. High sugar kills you over the decades. It doesn't kill you instantly. So after, let's say, 70 years old, like hemoglobin A1C, I'm sure those who have diabetes, they know that word, hemoglobin A1C. So when you're younger, the numbers are a little bit lower. Like, you want to, well, 6 to 7 is a good number kind of thing. But as you grow older, sometimes you just say, you know what, 7 is fine, 7.25 is okay. No big deal. As long as you're living an okay life, you're fine, okay? So why? Because all these medications can cause hypoglycemia, means low blood sugar, and that can cause, every week we see at least 2 or 3 people with the low blood sugar in the year. They come unconscious and we gain the sugar and they wake up like this. But then if you are taking the oral blood sugar medication like glyburide or things like that, then your low sugar can actually continue for a long period of the time. And that is where the problem happens, because a lot of people live by themselves, and they call the EMS. EMS gives them the sugar, and they wake up, and EMS say, okay, adios amigos, you're fine, we are going home, we are going back. And then they stay home, and then 2 hours later, the sugar drops again. And one of these episodes basically kill them. So especially if you know somebody who has a dementia, advanced dementia, where they can't remember anything, you really need to reconsider how much insulin they really need, or how much sugar medicine they need. Or if you know somebody who is going to live only for a year or 2, then diabetes is not the top priority. Leave them peacefully. The goal is not to add the days to the life. The goal is to add life to the days. Okay, so forget about the medication and insulin at that point. Just have good memories with that person. And especially if the person has a recurrent hypoglycemia, if you know that that person has top sugar 3 times in last 6 months, you better reconsider how much insulin that person needs. So those things are very important. Then Benadryl. I'm sure every one of you have taken Benadryl one time or the other, right? Benadryl. Now, Benadryl is good if you have itching or the rash or things like that, allergic reaction, but Benadryl basically impairs your mentation. So obviously you should not be driving after Benadryl, but in the older people, it can cause a lot of problem if you take Benadryl. Some people say, well, if I take a Benadryl, I get a good sleep. Yeah, because it's an antihistamine, so you're going to induce some sleep, but it's a poor choice as a sleep medicine. Okay, maybe melatonin may be better than Benadryl, but because not only you get sedation that day, but you actually get the sedation next day also. So that's a bad medication. Plus, if you're taking along with the other medication that impairs your cognition, is going to be a big problem. And then the dementia medication is one of the big thing, because above 60 or 65, you will see a lot of people here on the dementia medication. And now the catch with the dementia medication, you don't even know whether it's working. You just have to kind of go with the pharmaceutical companies, what they say, well, it's effective in this many percent, but most of the time, I cannot tell whether the dementia medication is working or not. So if I had a choice, I would never put anybody on the dementia medication because that's my personal opinion that it is of not much use. But despite that, I see almost 20% of 30% of the older people on the dementia medication, and those dementia medications belong to that anticholinergic group where all the side effects I told you happen. So you really, if you know somebody who is on the dementia medication, then you have to really consider that do they really need it. Then there are antidepressant medication. Luckily we don't have that much problem, but a lot of people are on the depression medication. Same thing like I told you about antipsychotic medication. The psychiatric medication has got a lot of side effects. And what happens that most of the internists that you see, we don't have much experience with the psychiatry. So what happens is that if you don't actually see the psychiatrist on a regular basis, the internist may not even pay attention to your psychiatric medication. Forget about paying attention to the side effect of it. And with the most of the psychiatrists also nowadays, they don't have much time to talk to you in detail. So they probably will continue the same medication every time you go, and that adds up the side effect. Then the other thing is the cancer chemotherapy. See, cancer is one of the field that has got a lot of advances in last 20 years. So a lot of cancers which were considered incurable has now become curable to some extent. And some of the cancers, we are able to prolong the life significantly. But that does not mean that everybody needs the chemotherapy. Like, that if this guy, if he gets the chemotherapy, he's going to collapse because he's so frail, it's so weak, it's so poorly nourished that chemotherapy is going to kill him. So you don't have to give everybody chemotherapy. You really have to figure out whether the benefit outweighs the risk. So that is going to be a common thing. Anything you put in the mouth, you have to think, is the benefit worth taking the side effect profile? If that's yes, then yeah, you take it. Okay. Then there are fluoroquinolone, like especially in the older ladies. I'm sure every one of you, especially female, not male, had a UTI once in their life, urine infection, right? That's very common in the females to get a UTI. So when you get a UTI, we give you antibiotic, and there are two standard antibiotics, actually three standard antibiotics. One is we call it ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin. I'm sure some of you probably can remember that name, levofloxacin. And then second group is Bactrim or Septra, one of the things that you probably heard, Bactrim. Okay, and the third is Macrobid. Okay, these are the three different groups that we typically use in the UTI. And those are pretty okay medications, nothing major about it. But for example, the levofloxacin or ciprofloxacin, if you take it, that it can create a lot of problem. It can actually rupture your Achilles tendon, and that is a black box warning by FDA that if you take levofloxacin, it can actually cause the tendon rupture. Okay, not everybody gets it, but it can happen. Then it can cause heart problem, and it can cause the hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. It can actually cause the colon infection. So taking 5 days every other year, or that's fine. But if you're getting urine infection every other month, and if you're getting antibiotic every other month, you really need to figure out why you're getting infection and what are the other ways not to get the infection rather than keep popping the antibiotic every other month. Same thing with Bactrim. If you keep taking that every other month or every 3 months, you're going to keep rising your potassium and you're going to affect your kidneys eventually. So anything that you take on a regular basis over more than 2 years, you really need to think about it, that do I really need it? What are the side effects I'm already getting it? So I'm getting a little bit over time. So I'm almost getting over. The Bactrim is done, benefit, yeah. So once you do this deep prescribing, you will be able to reduce the hospitalization, overall risk of the harm and the fall. And you basically remove the medication that you don't need at all. There are so many medications that you don't need. And when you start reducing your medication, it's a systemic approach. You don't just say tomorrow, okay, Dr. Shah told me, so from tomorrow I'm not going to take all this medication. Don't do that. Okay. First, you have to make a list of the medication in the form that I gave you. You yourself figure out that, hey, I don't even have this problem anymore. I used to have a gout, but I don't have a gout anymore. For last 10 years, I never had a gout, and I'm still taking allopurinol. Why am I taking it? You will figure out, oh, I don't need this. Then when you go to your doctor, you go over the whole list and say, do I need this? Do I need this? Can we reduce the dose or can we reduce the frequency? All those things you discuss with your doctor. And then make sure you have frequent follow-up. Like if you cut down on 2 or 3 medication, it cannot happen just cold turkey. Okay, you're taking 30 milligrams today, stop tomorrow. No, you cannot do that. Most of the medications, you have to taper gradually because your body is so used to it, the body will have a withdrawal symptom. So you don't want to do it cold turkey. So maybe reduce 20 to 50% every 2 to 4 weeks and gradually you wean yourself off. So that, and then meanwhile, you go to your doctor more often than every 6 months or every year. Maybe go every 2 months or every month and let them make sure that you're not getting any withdrawal symptoms or flare up of your disease. Because if you cut down on your diabetes medication and if your blood sugar goes up to hemoglobin A1C goes up to 11 or 12, that's not good either. So it is a balanced approach between what you really need and what you don't need it. So what you don't need it, get rid of it. What you need it, you take it as prescribed so you can have a healthy, happy and productive life. Because pills are good. Anything when it is taken in the right amount, at the right time, in the right frequency, any poison is a amrit. I think I used the same word last time also. But anything taken in the wrong amount, wrong timing, and the wrong dosing frequency, it can become a poison. So those are in nutshell. Sometimes you will end up, like some patients are so, fixed on their medication that they are afraid of not stop. They're afraid of stopping. They say, what if I stop, then this will happen. What if I stop, then this will happen. So that is the patient's own preference, that they don't want to leave the medication. Say, no, I cannot stop this Zoloft. I've been taking it so long. If I don't take it, I won't feel good. Something like that. And then the de-prescribing part, I think probably you heard this first time in your life about not writing the medication from the mouth of a doctor, right? Have you heard this before? No doctor will be talking about it. So it is not a fashionable thing to talk amongst doctor either, because it takes time, effort, energy, and why to waste time, kind of a thing. People are going to take medication anyway, something like that. And a lot of people, they don't have enough time to recognize the problem with the polypharmacy, that what it is causing it. So that are some of the barriers. And there are some resources. I can WhatsApp to Sujata ji that if you are interested in specific medications, there are a few websites called deprescribing.org. And actually Canada and Australia is ahead in the game than US in this. As you know, the US pharmaceutical industry is so big that they don't want people to stop taking medication. They want people to keep taking medications, versus Canada and Australia, and to some extent UK, where there's a government healthcare. They want people not to take medications because they don't want to spend money on the medication. It's a good thing. So they have done a lot more work in systematically de-prescribing the medication, that which medication can be stopped, when, and what happened, all kinds of stuff. If you go to deprescribing.org, there's a lot of information there. There's a New South Wales, like Sydney, Australia. They have guidelines on that. And then there's Canadian Society for De-Prescribing. Everybody has I can send you the links if you want. So you can study yourself, and if any specific medication you have questions, I might have probably a pamphlet or flyer for that. I can send it to you, and you can look through it and say what can you do. So sorry, I went a little bit over time, but I think that was an important topic for everybody to know about it. Back to Sujata ji.
That was a very good, Rakeshji, actually, because I have never heard that term at all, actually, to start with polypharmacy. When you said, I was like so impressed, because we all think about it. Definitely. We all think about it. Like my mom used to take like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pills in the morning, 5 or 6 pills in the evening. So it's like, I mean, she was like fed up. Like, I mean, but we thought that's what is needed. We never think that we can stop some. But I would like to ask you one thing because we don't have time. What I'm thinking is I would like to add your name in our Vanaprastha WhatsApp group for at least this month. You can drop off if they're like too much, but any questions that the participants have, I think it will be a nice way to do directly rather than going through me. So if they put it in the WhatsApp and you are so good in responding, I think that will help our participants quite a bit actually, if it's okay with you.
No problem. I will be honored. Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. So Vinodji, we'll take one question and then we'll go because Vinodji had his hand like way up for a long time. So go ahead, Vinodji. You're on mute though.
You're still muted.
I think I should go to Dr. Shah just to discuss all this.
Okay.
You gave a good speech, no doubt about it. But doctors generally, they don't. My question is the pharmacist is better or doctor is better? If you want to know about medicine, should I be talking to pharmacist or doctor?
Well, your first preference should be doctor because doctor will have a panoramic view of your health. Pharmacist will have only one aspect of your health, which is the medication. So pharmacist on one hand, they will have a more idea about the side effects of the medications and the drug interactions, everything. So if I were you, I would start with the doctor and first decide absolutely which medications you need, and then the medication you don't need or kind of so, then you can discuss with the pharmacist, say, hey, what are the side effects of this medication? And you can always ask both the people same thing. Chances are that you will have a better answer from pharmacist about the side effects and the drug interaction, and the doctor will give you the holistic perspective about, hey, look, I know that this metformin is giving you this problem like low B12, but this is the best option for you right now based on this, and this, something like that. Or they might say, well, you need hydroxychloroquine for your, rheumatoid arthritis or something like that. I know that you have a little bit of heart problem, but I can handle that because taking hydroxychloroquine is more important for your disease right now. So pharmacists will not have that kind of a perspective of your health because they're not trained to think from that perspective. They have tunnel vision about the disease related to the medications only. But some pharmacists are pretty smart, and if you find a very genius pharmacist, then yeah, by all means.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm talking about my mother-in-law. She's a 93-year-old.
Yeah.
So she was taking two medication. So then I knew one doctor in pharmacy. I talked to her. She said, why your doctor giving so many medicine?
Yeah.
So she said, cut down this medicine, cut down this thing slowly and slowly. And now she is much better.
See, we got
Believe it or not, but it's true.
Oh, good example. Very good example for the whole group. So that's what Vinodji, that's what I'm going to, Rakeshji, I think that a lot of questions are there definitely in everyone's mind.
I want to say one thing.
We'll go ahead and put you in the WhatsApp group. And
Yeah.
then we'll go
Yeah,
from
I think Vimlaji had some question.
there. Vimla,
Yes, I believe in let food be your medicine, not medicine be your food.
I agree 100%. Food should be
And I
the
practice
medication.
it.
You got 100% of my vote for that.
Thank you.
But it should be a good food. It should not be this sugar-free or this is
No,
totally
no, no. My food has
No,
to
no,
be
no.
absolutely delicious and colorful. I eat with my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't believe in sugar-free diet and everything. It should be
No,
a regular food.
No, I don't believe you either.
yeah, but
Okay, that's
we
good.
have to do what we have to do though, actually. So.
Doctor, this is Siva. Thank you so much. It's been very, very, very educative, and I personally could, connect a lot of dots now and have a lot of questions also. So it's very useful. Thank you so much.
I definitely think it's like a food for thought right now. it's for everybody has to rethink, and we don't talk about it as much. So I really think it's a very good session to begin the talk and have discussion, and we can go from there and see if as the questions come up, they may go from one to the another. Leading, if they're really personal, they can text you because the number will be there, and if it's something which is useful for everyone, I think all of us can benefit from it. I was thinking I wanted everyone to join today, even the younger group, because we all know our parents take, or like there are not just like old seniors, even youngsters, sometimes if they have one disability or some condition, they start taking and it'll go on forever. We don't even think twice, actually. It's very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Rakesha.
You're welcome.
So we are going to close the session for today, but all of you feel free you have my number on the flyer itself. If you want Rakesh's number, I can give it anytime. I'm going to add him to the group. So feel free to message us, and we'll go from there and see how it goes for talking further. All March birthdays. Harita is going to sing the song now. Let's celebrate March birthdays.
Janmadinamidam Aipriya Sakhe Shantanotu Te Sarvadamudam Prarthayamahe Bhavasatayushi Ishvara Sada Tvam Charakshatu Punyakarmana Kirtimarjaya Jivanam Tava Bhavatu Sarthakam Janmadinamidam Aipriya Sakhe Shantanotu Te Sarvadamudam Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshiyamamritat. Happy birthday to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm going to just do the ending prayer and we'll end the session. You can stay back if you have questions. We'll talk about it. So everyone can drop off to that. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Nirayana Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhave Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnamesvavashishyate. Hari Om, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Rakesh ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Should I call you Padma Shri Rakesh ji?
So nice of you. Good to see you.
Good to see.
I like that happiness and smile, cherish in the background.
Yes.
There you.
Thank you so much, Rakesh ji. We'll catch up with you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Hari Om, thank you very much.
As long as you know insurance company, talk to them. Every insurance company, they have favored dispensary. Just like United Health, they prefer Walgreens. So if you buy your medicine from Walgreens, you will get the cheapest possible price. Now, if you have insurance companies, Aetna, their preferred pharmacy is CVS. So you should buy from CVS. So you have to talk to your insurance company, which is their preferred dispensary. Go to that dispensary and you will save a lot of money. Besides that, mail order, okay, but I don't like mail order in the sense I want to talk to the pharmacist in person. That's the only thing I wanted to tell.
That is amazing. Vinodji, why don't you put it in the WhatsApp group too? That's a very good point, I think. I never heard of that before, actually. But thank you so much for sharing
Okay.
that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to
Thank
you.
you, Ji. Thank you so much. I
Sure.
appreciate that. It was very nice.